We open to find Naomi Wildman, Voyager's first child, is now onto her third actor, and she's grown an extra horn since we last saw her. That's all reasonable, of course. She's half Qatarian, and the last we heard about them is that their children grow up quickly. This is why, at just under 3 years old, she's having full conversations with Flotter and Trevis, characters in the holodeck program she's exploring by herself. A message comes through from Neelix to tell her that it's bedtime, but that she has a call waiting for her too. It's Ensign Mum, formerly Ensign Pregnant, and she's calling to catch up with her daughter as she's on an away mission. One that's going to take a few days longer than expected, much to Naomi's disappointment. She leaves to get ready for bed as Neelix, who's been taking care of Naomi for Ensign Mum, takes over the call. She tells him the reason they're going to be late back is because of some ion storms, hence the terrible signal. It cuts out completely when the latest storm catches them, and we leave them to deal with the danger, only not really, because Paris and Tuvok are there too, so they'll be fine. We're listening to Tuvok's distress call from the Delta Flyer. They've been slapped around by that ion storm and forced to look for somewhere to land. Kim's figured out where the signal came from, and we can go to take a look, but it'll mean going through the storm ourselves. Janeway thinks we can handle it, and we get ready to set off, but Neelix is concerned about how Naomi will handle the news that her mother is missing. He suggests not telling her at all, which, well, I'm not convinced that lying to a kid is the best choice. When she finds out, and she will find out, she'll have no reason to believe you about anything else afterwards. Janeway thinks that Neelix knows her best and is the one who should make the decision, then tasks him with keeping her busy. Which is why he's spending time with her in the mess hall. After we learn that she's a little afraid of Seven, Neelix tells Naomi that the doctor will be giving her a botany lesson. She says she doesn't like sickbay, which is fair enough when you consider that technically she has already died in there once, but Neelix convinces her to go anyway. Let's check on the Delta Flyer. They're still being chased by storms, but manage to find somewhere to land. True, it's a shit somewhere with volcanoes and the like, but it'll have to do. The Delta Flyer becomes a true Voyager shuttlecraft by virtue of having its first crash. Paris must have forgotten where the brakes are, as they were going fast enough to bury themselves in rock. Still, at least they're not injured. Except for Ensign Mum, of course, who got proper fucked up internally. Paris gives her some of that good shit from the first aid box and leaves her to start tripping balls while he talks things over with Tuvok. We've managed to bury ourselves a few kilometres under the surface and can't call out because of all the rock. Nor can we leave the shuttle, as the atmosphere in the cave they've found is only slightly less toxic than Leola route. They're not going anywhere without help from Voyager. Just as well that they've arrived then. Kim's tracked an impact site but can't tell if they're buried or vaporised on impact. Janeway's putting money on the latter, as the Delta Flyer was built to last, not least of which because that set was too expensive to only get 3 episodes out of it. We can't find any life signs, so we're going to check the hard way, and Janeway sends Chakotay and an away team to look for them on foot. Naomi's in sickbay having that lesson. The doc's doing a decent job of keeping her engaged, but is clearly awkward when Naomi starts talking about her mum. So much so that he's actually pleased to see Neelix, a turn of events that confuses him, and we give some points to the writers and actors for a well-played scene. It's time for fun, and Neelix takes her to the holodeck, and the conversation on the way turns to his family. He didn't have a holodeck when he was growing up, but played in a nearby forest with his sisters. Naomi asks where his sisters are now, and Neelix avoids telling her that they're all dead, killed by the weapon that destroyed his colony, possibly to keep the topic away from people dying. He instead tells her that they're far away and he hasn't seen them in a long time. As a perfect example of why you don't lie to kids, she continues asking about them in the belief that they're still alive. He provides minimal answers and changes the subject when they arrive at the holodeck. It's the same characters as before, but in a different story. This time we're introduced to the Fire Ogre, and things take a slightly darker turn when the ogre straight up fucking murders Flotter and burns down the forest. It's not quite the relaxing entertainment that Neelix had hoped for, and he tells Naomi that it's her bedtime as they swiftly depart. Neelix doesn't like the idea of leaving things as they are, so goes to see Kim with an idea. A bit of tinkering from him creates something Neelix thinks will help, a doll of Flotter, the holodeck character that got roasted. Presenting it to Naomi doesn't quite get the reaction he desired, but that's partly because she's already working on a solution herself. She's researching the science behind water evaporation, figuring out a way to cool down the forest so Flotter will recondense back into a liquid, and there is precisely 0 chance that Neelix will be able to keep the truth from a kid this smart. He still hasn't figured that out, as when she asks about her mother, Neelix tries to brush it off by suggesting she's very busy and maybe that's why the away team hasn't called in a few days. Unfortunately for him, Naomi knows her shit. She quotes a Starfleet regulation at him, the number of which can go fuck itself, saying that all away teams must report every 24 hours. Neelix brushes it aside again by saying everything will be fine, and Naomi lets it go, making him promise to wake her if her mother calls. He's got one thing right at least. Naomi asks for the Flotter doll before he leaves her to sleep. A chat with a picture of Neelix's dead sister shows Neelix is struggling, and a nightmare about the attack that killed his family doesn't help much either. Is it really Naomi he's trying to protect? Neelix wants updates. Astrometrics doesn't provide much, so he tries the bridge. No updates from there either, and while we are still searching, Janeway thinks we should be prepared for all eventualities, and the best way to do that is to let Naomi know the truth. Neelix balks at the idea and puts up a fight, so Janeway takes the discussion to her ready room. While she believes Neelix has the best of intentions, she disagrees with his approach and will tell Naomi herself if he won't. The explosive response from Neelix is met with compassion, as Janeway sees Naomi's not the only reason why he's reacting this way. She convinces him to tell her, but he says he'll do it in the morning. That's unless the Delta Flyer crew can save themselves before then. An attempt to do so goes to shit and causes some sparks, leaving Ensign Mum dejected. I'd expected an upbeat chat from Paris, but it's Tuvok who steps in to help her. In hindsight, that makes more sense. He's a parent too, and is best placed to understand that Ensign Mum's concern is not for herself, but rather Naomi. He convinces her that no matter the result for them, Naomi will survive and thrive with the support and compassion of those around her, just as he trusts the same is happening with his own children back home. We don't often get family stuff from Tuvok, but it's welcome when we see it, and Ensign Mum is thankful for it too. Back on Voyager, Naomi awakes with a start and calls for her mum. Unable to find Neelix, she asks the computer to tell her where he is, and goes to see him. She sees a busy engineering team teleporting down to the surface, but manages to dodge them and everybody else on the way to the bridge. As an aside, seriously though, we need to voice print lock the turbo lifts from providing access to all areas. I've lost count of the problems this would have solved. We add another to the list as Naomi arrives on the bridge during a report from an away team. They found debris and Janeway tells sickbay to prepare for casualties. Neelix spots Naomi and she runs back into the turbo lift, but the damage is done. Neelix can't find Naomi and asks the computer to track her. What it tracks is her comm badge, and it's on the doll he gave her. Of course, we haven't seen her wearing a comm badge at any point in the entire episode, so I don't know why he expected this to work, but let's ignore that for now. Instead, she's taking refuge in the holodeck. Apparently, the fire ogre is less traumatic than the situation Neelix has caused. To the rescue teams, where Seven has detected the hull of the Delta Flyer. We can't detect life signs, and she says we can't teleport them out as a result. Guess we've forgotten about that skeletal lock thing B'Elanna pulled out of her arse a season back. We'll have to dig them out instead, and Chakotay orders the teams to converge and set up pooping drills. Paris has already come to the conclusion that they're all going to die, and is recording a goodbye message for B'Elanna. As Tuvok prefers a written farewell, it's Ensign Mum's turn, and she records one for Naomi to the backdrop of the computer telling them that they'll run out of oxygen in 10 minutes. Her last request is that she listen to Neelix, who'll be taking care of her now. I'm not sure Naomi's going to like that idea. Neelix is searching for her in the holodeck and is told to sod off by Trevis and Flotter, who Naomi has saved by turning him back into water. He's a lying sack of shit, they say, and she doesn't want to see him. Neelix tries to delete them, only to discover Naomi has locked the program, so the only thing that achieves is pissing them off. Neelix spots Naomi behind a log and asks to talk to her. She agrees and calls off Flotter and Trevis, but not without another warning from them. Naomi doesn't mince her words and just asks if her mother is dead. Neelix explains what really happened, that they don't know if she's alive, and how there's debris but not the main hull of the shuttle. He says he thinks they'll be all right. Naomi asks why she should believe him, what with him being a lying wanker and all, and he explains about his own family and why he was trying to protect her from feeling the same way. A ship-wide call interrupts to tell us there's another ion storm incoming, and we scarper to Naomi's quarters, promising a concerned Flotter and Trevis that we'll be back. Janeway calls Chakotay as the away team drill poops some rock. She says the ion storm will collapse the cave when it arrives, which seems like a very specific thing to know, but I guess she's a scientist. They've got 6 minutes to get finished before the purple swirly chasing Voyager arrives and buggers everything up. Paris and Tuvok are getting ready to die. At least I assume that's why they're wasting oxygen by talking instead of keeping their damn mouths shut. Some noise from outside the shuttle causes Paris to start banging on the hull, and Chakotay reports to Voyager that they've put some science gizmos down that'll let them teleport the whole Delta Flyer aboard. Some beeping happens and Kim says they've teleported it into the shuttle bay as Janeway tells us to get the fuck out of Dodge. I guess we'll assume the away team's teleported aboard too. Naomi is brought to sickbay by Neelix to find an alive and healed Ensign Mum, and they have a bit of a cuddle. Later, we all have a go in the holodeck, and as Flotter, Trevis, Naomi and Ensign Mum go for an adventure, Janeway comes in to check on everyone and chat with Neelix as we fly away. The nature of parenting, the question of how much protection is too much, is a difficult one. Wanting to defend children from potential harm is an understandable and natural instinct, but taken too far can leave them unprepared for reality, regardless of your good intentions. Neelix's motivation here was entirely altruistic, albeit coloured by his own emotional trauma. His conversation with Kim about how a starship is no place for a child is part of that, a desire to shield them from any potential harm, regardless of how much else that shield cuts off. This ties nicely to what we've seen before about Neelix and his overprotective nature. In the case of Kez, that approach manifested as a possessiveness that ultimately drove her away, and rightly so, as the relationship was a toxic one. We touch on the underlying cause of that behaviour again here, the loss of his family. That absence has made him hold those he cares about all the closer, often to a suffocating degree. He's the polar opposite of what we saw from B'Elanna a couple of episodes ago. Where she dissociated from loved ones so there could be no pain from their loss, he does all he can to make sure that loss can never happen. Two ends of the same spectrum and both extremes equally damaging in their own way. I'm pleased that the episode was clear in its condemnation of Neelix's behaviour, Janeway being blunt that he's lying to Naomi. Our own society often places too little emphasis on the rights and autonomy of children, and seeing that called out here is welcome. That Naomi regularly comes across as more emotionally mature than Neelix is a nice touch too. Speaking of nice touches, there are a few in this one, so let's go through them. We'll start with the holodeck program, just like the episode did. This isn't simply a story with children's characters in it. The show changes the way it's presented visually. Just as Captain Proton turned things monochrome to evoke a feel, this takes things the other way and turns everything up. Somebody sat down to think about what goes into a kids' TV show, converting those principles of stimulating aesthetics into a holodeck program with the use of vibrant, oversaturated colours. Oh, and Trevis lying down was genuinely funny.
Timber.
Elsewhere, Naomi's opinion of Seven is perhaps an indication of something more. We've established that she's a very observant and astute child. Is this a suggestion that she's vocalising fears shared by some of the crew? The only interaction we've seen between Seven and Ensign Mum ended with Ensign Mum making an excuse and leaving. Even if there's nothing overt from her or the other crew, kids can pick up on things more readily than we give them credit for. Lastly, we see the Doc in teacher mode here and revelling in the role. He's animated and engaging, a far cry from the curmudgeonly git that he can be to others. If we're generous, we can say it's because he has a passion for the subject, but I suspect there's no small part of enjoyment at showing off his knowledge, too. If we want to read even more into it, perhaps Naomi reminds him of someone as well. End of episode. Any progress on the teleport thing?
They say it's going to take a while to set up. Apparently the teleporter expert got his face melted off a little while back.
Shouldn't have been a dick then, should he? Are you sure it's smart giving it another go?
Why wouldn't it be?
Well, there have been 4 teleports between us and 3 of them have ended up in the body of a dog. You've got to admit that, statistically, that's a bit dodgy.
Fair point. Maybe I should give it a while.
Good lad. And while you wait, you could try licking your balls, like I said.
I've already told you I'm not going to do that.
Spoil sport. Woof.